Got it. We live? There you go. It's live, Oliver. So, fab.
So it is working. All right.
Yes.
Look at that. All right. So let me get out of here first. Okay. Cool. Look at that. So we're live. So I guess since we're live, we should probably go ahead and start. And as other people come in, we'll allow them to come in and join the conversation. Thank you for those of you who are here to be a part of this phenomenal conversation that we've entitled Underproducing to Overcoming. There's a story behind that, and I'll tell it very quickly before I introduce the phenomenal Tracy Kimberg. But before I do that, the context behind that title is that we're looking today at some of the things that are vital, that are pivotal, if you will, in changing your life in a way that allows you to move the needle in the right direction, that allows you to go from a place where you're not really generating the kind of life that you would like, you're not seeing the kind of movement that you would like, to a space where you are overcoming. Now, that title, Overcoming, comes from a book that I wrote entitled Overcoming the Man Laws for the Man Who Wants to Be His Best Despite What He Was Taught. And in that book, I talk about how I went from underproducing to overcoming. It's a story that I tell quite often about the pivotal moment that I had in my life, and maybe that will come up in our conversation. So that's what we're talking about today. And we have some great folks with us as well. So we have Sarah is in the house, and we have Sandy with us as well. And to help this conversation really move in the way that it should, we have Tracy Kimberg. I'm not even going to attempt to do justice by introducing her. I'm going to allow her to introduce herself and all the wonderful things that she does and is doing in the space. And then we'll jump right into the conversation.
Great. Thanks, Oliver. I feel like the pressure's on today with that intro. Hello, everybody. My name is Tracy Kimberg, for those that don't know me. I am a therapist. I specialize in relationships. I focus mostly on couples and teenagers, and you might think that's a weird combination, but I think it's very closely linked, because I feel that if you're a teenager and you have issues and you don't resolve them or find help with those issues, you will definitely take them into your relationships as an adult. And I see that in my couples that come to me where they have unresolved issues from their past, maybe, or teenage years, and it comes out in their relationships as adults. So that's how I got to use that combination. But I'm so happy to be here and really excited to see how this conversation pans out and all the valuable things that get shared.
Indeed. And I appreciate you being a part of this conversation, because I know that you will lend an extreme amount of value to what we're talking about. And hopefully we come away from this with one of two things happening. One, either what we're doing already in life is now reinforced, and we have that reinforcement that allows us to say, okay, I'm on the right path, let's keep going. Or you find some things that you are like, hey, you know what, I do want to tweak in this area, and thank you for bringing those kinds of things to light. And either way, it's a win, and that's what we're looking for, right? Enlightenment, enhancement, reinforcement, all of these things are wins as we are looking to move from underproducing to overcoming. So I have a question for Sarah and for Sandy, sorry. I have a question for you two. You can put in the chat your answers, and we'll start off with this question. So was there a time in your life that you can look back on and say, man, I really wasn't producing the way that I would like? And that doesn't have to necessarily be business. That could be personal life. That could be family. That could be relationships. That could be business. a time in your life that you can think back to where you're like, man, I wasn't doing that. And what did you do? What was the first step? If you could look back and kind of write those steps out for somebody, what was the first step that you took? And I'll pose this question to you, Tracy. The first step that you took to really kind of shift that in a different direction.
Oh, I think the first step is awareness of that maybe you are underproducing. You know, I find if you are aware of that space that you find yourself in, that's almost like an awakening invitation to change. And I think it's listening to that message that you hear. Let's call the universe. Let's say the universe gives you a message to say that you are not where you should be, or not where you could be, or not where you want to be. For me, it's that if I think back of a specific time for me, and I don't know if I should share that time with you guys, to make myself vulnerable and share. I have a very sticky relationship with my father's wife, very sticky relationship. And it feels like we always constantly triggering each other, and she thinks I'm doing something which I'm not, and I think she's doing something which she probably is not. And I think the moment where I realized this is not actually the relationship I want in my life was a great realization, because that is where I started making the changes that needed to be made.
Okay. Yeah, and it's I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say I dare say that it is the sticky situations often that push us to a space of awareness, and we may not choose to recognize it, or we may not choose to actually do something with it when it happens. But I dare say sometimes it's the sticky situations that put you in there. Welcome, Kim, to the conversation. Just to catch you up, we're talking about going from underproducing to overcoming, and the things that are pivotal, that are vital in our quest to move the needle in the right direction. And started out with a question, and the question was, can you point back to a time where you weren't producing, whether it be family, friends, whether it be business, whether it be personal life, a time that you were not really producing the way that you wanted to, and what was the first step that you took to really turn these things around? And some great comments. Sandy said, definitely. Sarah said, when I was a teenager, I was just cruising, didn't really believe in my abilities. Sandy entered a spiritual 12-step program. That's awesome. 27 years ago, first step into self-awareness. Again, there's that word, awareness and personal development. Sarah says, had an amazing tutor, saw potential and really cheered you on to do more and be more. Start to realize, the captain of my ship, you're the captain of your ship. Indeed. Yeah. And so that and see, that kind of speaks to what I just said. You know, there's these moments that I guess we could all label the way you labeled them, Tracy, as sticky, that kind of push us to this place of awareness. And then there are other things that come into play, tutors or 12-step programs, or in my case, there's something that I did and I didn't even realize I was doing it. But once I realized it, I started to do it all the time. And I call it shadowing my future. And what I mean by shadowing my future is that if you think about some of the individuals that, if you can identify individuals that have walked the path that you've already walked, and that have already accomplished some of the things that you're looking to accomplish, or that you're aspiring to accomplish. In my book, I talk about taking people through a 4-step process of observation, training, execution, and feedback. So if Sandy has gone down this path that I aspire to go down, right? It's important that I get around Sandy, and and Sandy gives me the opportunity to observe. And as I observe her, I'm learning more about this thing that I'm interested in and this path that I want to take, because Sandy's further down the path than I am. And then I'm training, so to speak. So there's some of the stuff that I see her do now, I take it and I try to do it. And then Sandy may say, hey, yeah, that's a good way to do it. That's not a good way to do it. Here's how I did it. Go ahead and try it. And then I get to this moment in my life where I'm able to execute. And Sandy's like, listen, you're ready. Go forth and be great. And I go forth and do these things that now I'm in this space that I finally always wanted to be in. But yet Sandy's also there to provide feedback as I execute. Hey, listen, man, that was phenomenal. Here's something that I ran into that I'm going to tell you about that will help you, right? And I think that's important.
Let's get off. No, off.
Oh, that's Francesca. I thought that was
Francesca. Sorry, can you just put yourself on mute, please, if you don't mind? We just hear. Great, thank you so much.
Thank you. And so that's important. So thank you for sharing that. I think that you're right. That awareness piece is the beginning, right? That awareness piece is the beginning, because without that, you can't be in a space or a frame of mind where you can get any guidance, or that you're even open to a 12-step program, or that you're even willing to listen to a tutor, or any of these things that come along next as it relates to you moving to this space. I'll tell my story if you don't mind. And then Tracy, the question that I have for you after that is, if you were to run into someone who needed some assistance, what is something that you would tell them in terms of, they got to this step where they're in awareness phase now, but they're not sure what to do with this burst of awareness that's coming on to them? It's almost overwhelming, this awareness. So think about what your advice would be for that person. For me, right? Pivotal moment. You talked about being in a sticky situation. Pivotal moment for me in my life. I was 18 months into my marriage. I've been married for 22 years now. I've known my wife for 27 years. 18 months into my marriage. I'm not going to give you the whole backstory, but I was always a wonderful guy. Let's be clear. I'm just going to toot my own horn. I was always a wonderful guy, but I was not always the greatest husband. There were some things that in my past as a single person that I brought into my marriage, some sticky situations, some things I wasn't vulnerable about, some things that I didn't want to admit, some disappointments that I had crafted as a badge of honor. And I just use it as a license to just do whatever, right? I took all of that into my marriage. Obviously, any of you who are married knows that a marriage can't survive with somebody acting like that. So 18 months into my marriage, my girls are small. I have 3 kids, the youngest of which is about to turn 20 right now. At the time, the girls were small. And I had this pivotal moment at 4 a.m. where, as I was reading this devotion, the thought came into my mind: if your daughters that are sleeping down the hall from you, if they bring home this current version of you and they're like, this is my boyfriend, or this is the guy I'm going to marry, how would you respond? Yeah. Tough question, right? Now, I responded in a way that was very confrontational in my mind. I was like, well, listen, I'm the guy. I'm the man of this house. And only 2 of us are going to survive, and I'm going to survive. So that's how that's going to go down, right? But then the next question that pops into my mind was the question that really punched me in the chest. And you talked about awareness. That question was, okay, if that's your reaction, what are you going to do about you? I didn't have an answer to that question. However, here's what I knew. We're talking about awareness. Here's what I knew. I knew that at that point, something had to change. And I didn't know what that something was. And that's why I asked to pose that question to you, Tracy, because for that person who's at that point where they're like, okay, I realize this. I don't know anything else, but I realize this. Something has to change, but I don't know what it is. What do you tell that person?
I think you're on mute, Tracy.
Sorry about that. I would say to the person that I want them to believe that they have all the answers inside them. They know the answers of everything that needs to change, or the answer to all the questions that they're feeling inside. And to find those answers seems like this huge, ginormous mountain that needs climbing. But it's not as hard as they think. And the first step is to take the first step and to see this as a gradual process of rebirth or something new that's coming. Mm-hmm. And if you are in that space, if I were to have met you back in those days, Oliver, when you felt like that, I would have said to you that, you've already started. You've already taken the first step by just realizing that this is not who you want for your daughters, this type of person. So, let's allow yourself to let go of that person because as you know, you can't hold on to that person as an identity in some form and try and move away from it at the same time. It's about letting go of that person with love and kindness and grace and gratitude toward that person, because that's that person that brought you to who you are today. But sometimes you need to cut that string and say, right, thank you. I don't need you anymore. I'm going to be a new person now. And goodbye. I appreciate you for all that you taught me and helped me with through my life up to now, but I need something more now. And, and start the journey of finding out who that is. That's what I would say.
Nice. Yeah. And that's part of what had to happen. And for those of you that are in the room with us, if you feel free to put in the comments, what would you say to that person who we talked about awareness? So we can probably agree that awareness piece is pivotal in terms of the first moves that you make. But then some people get to that awareness piece and they're like, okay, I see that it's not right, but I don't know where to go next. And so just that's instrumental what you shared. And I've learned, and again, this is a journey, right? So we're talking about that pivotal moment for me happened 20 years ago. And it's been a journey for these last 20 years to maintain some things that I started back then. Because that pivotal moment for me, that piece of awareness that I had did not change the scenario right away. And I just want to encourage anybody who may see this now or may see this later on when it's reposted, that don't get discouraged, because sometimes we feel like awareness is going to bring this level of light that just makes everything what it should be. And that doesn't always happen automatically. So I had that pivotal moment at 4 a.m. And for a little while after that, things kind of felt like they were the same. But the difference for me was I was no longer facing the same direction. So that in and of itself is a win. If you can get to the place of awareness that allows you now to change your course in terms of the way you're looking, and you're looking now into a space where overcoming is a definite in your future, that is a win. And now it's just about putting one foot in front of the other. And one thing that I had to be very cognizant of is the alignment between mindset and behavior.
Mm.
So for me, I was very good at, even up until that point, even before that pivotal moment that I had, I was very good at changing my behavior to meet a particular set of requirements. So if something wasn't going right and my approach wasn't working, I'm like, okay, I know what to do. I'm going to change. I was very good at that. However, I didn't do the work, mindset work, that allowed head and heart to be aligned, and that allowed for me to now change my perspective about things.
Mm.
And so for me, I could change my behavior, but I tell people all the time, and guys especially, because I'm working with guys through my book, that behavioral change without mindset change is not sustainable long term.
No.
And that's a very key element to really understand, because we can change our behavior. So if I want to fit into a group that Sarah has, and this group has a certain element to them and a certain atmosphere to them, and I don't feel like I fit into that, I'm like, okay, you know what? I can act that part for that amount of time, and it may not be really who I am, but it gets me in the door with whatever Sarah's got going on, right? And we do that. We're good at doing that as human beings. But it's so important to really take it a step back and look at what is your perspective around this thing. If you're going to really go from underproducing to overcoming, you have to have a different perspective about life than the one you currently have.
God, so true.
And so for me, that was a pivotal moment. Sarah said it took me a few years after my initial awareness to be around the right people again and have the mindset to actually take some action. And that's sometimes how it happens, right? Sometimes there's some people who immediately they find themselves in the right place, just the stars aligned, and they had this moment of awareness, and just so happened, that Kim and Francesca were there to help, and it happens that way sometimes, but it does not always happen that way. So don't be discouraged. Keep putting one foot in front of the other. I told somebody this the other day. Very simple illustration, right? But it's powerful. If you step out of your house right now and you choose a direction, left, right, whatever, and you put one foot in front of the other for the next 10 hours, you may not be at your destination, but you might have to call somebody to give you a ride home. Because you're going to be considerably further away than when you started. And so that's a pivotal piece. Sandy said, I agree with Tracy. We have an innate wisdom. It gets covered over with our life experiences, overthinking, and beliefs. When we start to see ourselves for who we are, truly are, we open the door to so much possibility. I love it. 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 So let's keep going, right? Let's keep going, Tracy. So you've given us the first step. And now I'm in this space where I'm like, okay, Tracy, I hear what you're saying. I'm doing this thing. I don't know. Can I do it by myself? Is it possible for me to take that one piece of advice you gave me, and can I make these moves on my own? What would you tell that person?
I would say that you probably could, but it's a lot easier to find someone to support you. I think when you realize this awareness, let's say awakening, can we call it that? This awakening that you have about yourself, and you realize, oh, I can be better, or I want to change. I think the only person that you have with yourself is the one in your head, is that voice. And this goes hand in hand with what you said about the mindset change that needs to happen inside here with this person that is constantly with us, which is call it our ego. People call it different things, but I call it the other me in my head. And unfortunately, that person can sometimes not be very helpful
Yeah.
when you're on your own journey by yourself. And this is why it's so, so important. I would say find help. If you reach a point like that, if it's with your relationship, speak to your partner about it. Say to your partner, right, let's have a talk. I feel like I haven't been acting to my full potential and haven't been giving you who I can actually be. And I'd like to show you a bit more of that. Have your partner support if it's in a relationship. If it's with one of your children, have that conversation with your child. If it's at work, have it with one of your boss or your colleague that is going to be that sticky person that you seem to be bumping heads with. But I would say reach out. There's so much professional help out there. There's people that specialize in so many different fields, and you can find people like Oliver does with specifically helping men get through that. Let's call it that journey of discovery and finding out who they are really. Someone like Oliver, someone like me for relationships, someone like Sarah for wellness, someone like Sandy who's also in the wellness. There's so many people out there that can help you. And it's not the most important part about reaching for help is that it's not a weakness.
Yeah.
It's not a weakness if you ask for help. It's exactly the opposite. If you think of so many people out there in the universe that have tried to do things on their own and failed, but as soon as they get a team or people to help them, they succeed. And, I think find help and stick with that. And then the other thing that goes hand in hand with that is it's not meant to be easy change. I call it a bit of rebirth, and having a birthing process is not comfortable, is it? It's very painful. And this whole change of you becoming somebody different is sometimes going to be really painful, and you're going to have a setback, and it's going to be hard, and you're going to want to give up, and you're going to want to go back to your old ways or something like that. And you're going to hate yourself probably along the way. But it's about sticking to it. Like you said, Oliver, keep one foot in front of the other, keep moving step by step, and you will eventually move away more and more and more from the old person that you were.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So thank you.
That is awesome. And here's the thing. I want to say this to anyone who may run across this. That what Tracy said is 100% true. And it is, I don't want you to get discouraged, because we come up in this age of pull yourself up by your bootstraps and you can do this and, go out and be forth and be great. And all of these things that kind of put pressure on us to deliver and to go from underproducing to overcoming on our own. And then Tracy comes along and says, man, this is going to be a tough process. And so there are people who may hear that and say, well, it's going to be a tough process. I don't know. Am I built for it? Am I not built for it? And I want you to think about it like this. If you're building a home, you're building your dream home, right? The day that you say, I want to build my dream home, you're not moving in the next day. There is a process that takes place. That process is not always pretty. There's some walls that got to go up. There's some hammering and some nailing and some loud noises and some dust and some sawdust and some sheetrock and some paint and some all of these different things, these elements, right, that are in that middle ground process between you saying, I want to build my dream home, and you actually sipping tea in the kitchen. However, here's the thing. Nobody who builds their dream home during that middle process is like, oh man, this is terrible. I don't even know if I want this house because we got to put up more sheetrock today. Nobody's complaining. Everybody's like, wow, the walls went up today. Let's go drive by and see. Oh man, the garage is in, the roof is up. Wow, they're putting in the windows in today. And everybody's anticipating the fact that, man, we're going to have phenomenal dinner in about 3 months because this is going to be done. And I want you to have that same kind of energy around the process that you're taking in your life from underproducing to overcoming. Yes, that middle ground is going to require some work. You're going to have to put your hard hat on. You're going to have to do some things. But again, we're going back to perspective. We talked about awareness and awakening, and going from awareness and awakening to changing your mindset and perspective. If your mindset is one of expectation instead of drudgery, your behaviors and your approach are going to align with that. And you're going to be excited to see these small steps happen. And you're going to be excited to get around the people that you need to get around. And you're going to be eager to learn these things that you need to learn. And I think that that's an important thing to think about. You talked about getting around individuals, folk that can help you, and you called some of the names in the room. I think this is a great place to break and allow these names in the room to actually introduce themselves and say what they do. I would love to hear from each of you that are in the room with us. Just tell us briefly who you are, where you are in the world, and how do you serve the world. We can start with Sandy.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, and thanks for everything so far. It's it's really good. I love these discussions you have. It's a really great opportunity to explore, isn't it? And I guess that's what I'm about to a point. Okay, so I'm Sandy Tanner Wellbeing, and I help people. My passion is helping people, actually, and I help them with, that they can get stuck and self-sabotage and such like, and have limiting beliefs, and I help them resolve those aspects of themselves that aren't serving them anymore and such like. And really, from what's been saying as well, it's helping people recognize, who they truly are. And from that point, it's like clearing away anything that's no longer serving, decluttering, and then building from there, which is the sort of thing that you've been talking about, really. Yeah, so that's me. And I'm very grateful to be here in this discussion with you.
Excellent. Thank you for being here. We're glad you're here and lending to the discussion in the comments. It's awesome. Thank you. Let's go to Sarah.
Hello. Nice to see you all. Thank you. This is a fantastic discussion. I'm really enjoying it. Yeah, so my name's Sarah. What do I do? How do I help people? I really help people. I'm all about helping people winning in life, empowering them to thrive in what I like to say is a sexy, sustainable way. And that's kind of with a combination through healthy habits with their diet, what they're eating, their personal care, their mindset, and their personal growth for business and for collaborations for life, really. So it's a kind of, I think, you can't just win in one area and expect to be winning in all the others. It has to be in balance, so you could be brilliant at what you do, but you could be stressed out, need more energy, need better sleep, because you're not taking care of your self-care or your diet or, how you're looking after yourself. Or you could be doing all those things, but you've got a mindset for, well, I'm not really good enough. I don't really deserve this. So I'm just really passionate about helping people get that right combination for mindset, healthy habits inside and out for mindset and life. And, that really makes me feel, that I'm living my best self and I'm helping others do that with them as well.
That's excellent. Now, where are you in the world? And then Sandy, I want you to answer that.
I'm in the UK. Yeah, I'm in the northeast currently of England in the UK.
Awesome. UK. And Sandy, where are you in the world?
Yeah, I'm in Dorset in the UK as well, southwest UK. But I predominantly work online. So yeah, I work anywhere really.
I am enamored with my UK family. Can I just say that? Like, it's awesome. I'm meeting the greatest people in the world. I'm loving it. Thank you both. So let's go now. You guys don't have your cameras on, but if you're willing to speak, you can. Let's go with Kim if you're available. Where are you in the world? How do you serve the world? Kim might not be available. She might just be listening. How about Francesca? Please tell me I said that correctly, because I've said it. If I haven't, I've said it wrong already.
It was great.
All right. So where are you in the world, and how do you
So
serve the world?
I'm in the UK as well. I'm in Manchester, up in the north. I do animation and graphic design for ethical companies, charities, musicians, authors. I try and use my skill sets as a way to make the world a better place. And that's me.
Fantastic.
I love it. And listen, that's so you just said something that I think for all of us who are service people, right? Which I think we all should be to some degree, service oriented in our approach, is just making the world a better place. Right? That's the goal, right? One person at a time, one scenario at a time, one business transaction at a time, one friendship at a time, making the world a better place by infusing what you do in some way of service. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. That's awesome. I say it, I have a saying, some of you may already know, 2020 before hindsight. And it comes out of my book. So the book is dedicated to my son and some other folks, but to my son and that age group, I say, may you achieve 2020 long before hindsight. Because that service mentality is, okay, I've lived a certain way that has caused me to now, in hindsight, have to deal with some things. If I can help one person gain some level of clarity on the front end so they bypass some of that stuff, some of the things that may potentially throw off the trajectory of your life, helping the world become a better place. It's awesome. Thank you both. Kim, if you are there and you want to jump in at some point to share that, just say it in the chat and we'll break and have you come in and do that as well. So let's as we kind of round this out. Now, if you've been listening to this from the beginning, you're getting a blueprint. We're talking about going from underproducing to overcoming. And we talked about that first step really being that awakening, that awareness piece. Sometimes, often, that comes out of a sticky, I'm going to use Tracy's word, a sticky situation that causes you to have this pivotal moment that enlightens you in a way that makes you aware of the fact that you need to turn around and move in the other direction. And then we're talking about doing some things, making some mindset changes, putting some folks around you, getting in this space where you're putting one foot in front of the other and changing your perspective in a way that it becomes exciting to see these changes happen. So now, as we're on that path, how do we go about choosing, Tracy, those people? Like we all talked about it, even the comments, we talked about getting around folk. We got in a program, we had a tutor, we got some individuals that we were around that we were able to listen to and read some things from. And how do we go about choosing those folks? Because you can't just bring anybody and everybody into the circle, because that could be detrimental to your success as you move from underproducing to overcoming. What's some criteria that we should be looking at as we choose these people to get around?
I think, firstly, it has to be people that challenge you. People that challenge you in a good way, not in a bad way. We often, when we are reaching that point of awakening, we are actually, it's a time to assess who we're surrounding ourselves with. And there might be some people that are actually not good for you. And it could be family, it could be a friend, it could be someone at work. That might be your sounding board, but doesn't challenge and support you in the way that you deserve to be supported. I often find in relationships, for instance, when people have problems in their relationship, the husband or the wife might have a friend that they talk to about the relationship, but that person is really toxic and says, no, your husband's an idiot, leave your husband. But that's not what you need to hear right then. So be very careful who you listen to, who you surround yourself with. And, And the most important person that you need to be careful who you surround yourself with is, again, that person in your head. You know, what is that person saying to you every day? Are you listening to that best friend that's a bully, or the best friend that's kind? You know, which person are you listening to? Because we have two egos in our head. The one is the nice one, the one that's got your back, and the one is the one that's trying to put you down, who you're listening to. When you want to move and you are committed for change, I would say look for people that are far ahead in what you are trying to achieve. My mum used to say a very important, valuable thing, which now as a woman and a mother of 3 daughters, I realize how true it is. And she said, don't mix with unhappy couples. If you want to have a happy relationship, mix with people that are happy. And it goes with everything in your life. You want to be a successful business person, mix with other people that are successful. If you want to enrich your spiritual side of your life, then mix with spiritual people. If you want to strengthen your religion, then mix with people in a church. If you have to be really selective. And sometimes, like I said, with yourself, that you have to cut the cord. You need to cut the cord with some people, and that's also okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you come to a point where you realize, look, when I'm around this person, I feel really negative about my relationship with my husband, then maybe you shouldn't be around that person. So that's what I have to say on that question. I hope that was valuable.
Indeed. And thank you, because you also brought out a good point. We're talking about getting around good folks. You also brought out a very, very important piece of that, which is the fact that you may have to leave some folks. So that process is not just about you aligning yourself with the right people, but making sure that you are not aligned with the wrong people, which I think is very, very important. Francesca said, thank you for sharing this. Found a really interesting discussion. That's awesome. I'm so happy to hear that. And then Sarah had some comments as well. That's why it's good to read, listen, watch others who are already where you want to be and copy their habits. And as it relates to the people that you should be around, they need to have the same values, the same drive. And this is great. Expect more of you than you currently do of yourself. Now, you find somebody like that you can put that is in your corner, man, that's a gold mine. That is a blessing. If you have somebody like that now in your life, that is a tremendous blessing. They can see your future better self before you can. I love it. And that's important. And that goes back to what I was saying in terms of what I had to do. So if I'm taking you through a step-by-step process, I had to do the mindset piece. Pivotal. Because my perspective, I tell people often, if you don't like the results of your approach needs to change. We've all heard the saying, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. So you're going to have to change your approach, but you can't stop there, because typically your approach is a reflection of your perspective. So your perspective is going to have to change in order for your approach to be the kind of approach that gets you the results that you're looking for. And so I had to start there. And then I had to shadow my future, which is the piece we're talking about right now, getting around folks who give you the opportunity to see yourself in the future. I had a guy who did that for me, and I didn't even realize he was doing it in terms of being a good husband and a good father. The guy who married us, and I call his name almost once a week. He's no longer alive, rest his soul. Dr. Anthony Kelly. One of the greatest guys in the world, hands down. And I got the opportunity to spend a significant amount of time with him. He actually married my wife and I. I got some time, the opportunity to spend some significant time with him and watched how he interacted with his wife. how he interacted with his children. He was a preacher. He was a pastor. He was a businessman. He was a leader. I watched all of these components in this one man, and I watched his ability to navigate those spaces with a level of success that was mind-blowing for me. And I hitched my proverbial wagon to that level of teaching and an example. And so to this day, his name gets called quite often. And so I had to go through this process of shadowing my future, and I still do that to this day. I've met great individuals who they don't even know that they're doing this right now, but I'm shadowing them. I'm looking at how they're doing things and how they are approaching certain things and how they show up in meetings and how they show up in presentations and how they show up on stage. I'm a speaker, so I love to get up and empower folks. So I watch people who do that kind of thing. And so we got to get in that space where we're really focused on who are the individuals that are around us, and are those individuals around us, are they helping us to put one foot in front of the other? Are they encouraging us to do so, or are they pulling us in another direction? Because that's pivotal what you said, Tracy, to think about the folk who are not around you, right? And so as we kind of come down, because I want to close this at the top of the hour and be mindful of everybody's time. There's a major piece for me in all of this that ties all of those things together we just talked about. And it was the thing that I grappled with quite often. And it's something that I tell folk all the time. You can do all of these things that we talked about, and they are very important. But if you aren't willing to make the adjustments that come along with that, you're going to find yourself stuck. And for me, I went through a period of time where I was like, okay, I'm comfortable with who I am and how I do things. And I feel like these adjustments are actually going to change me at my core. They're going to change who Oliver is, who Oliver has become accustomed to. And I tell people often that adjustments, this phenomenal quote, okay? I'm just messing. It's just me. It's a quote for me. Adjustments are not a threat to your authenticity. So for the person, Tracy, as we kind of wrap this up, for the person who's like, man, I hear what you're saying. I know something needs to happen, but I don't want folk to change me. What's the importance of adjustments, and how can we go through this process of making adjustments without the fear of losing who Sandy is, losing who Francesca is, losing who Kim is, who Sarah is, who Oliver is, who Tracy is? How do we go about doing it?
I think it's about trusting the process and not overthinking it and leaning into it with almost a sense of trusting yourself to guide your rebirth. I mean, I often use the birthing process in my practice to explain how things eventually work out. And it's exactly that. It's how uncomfortable it might be. Don't give up. Keep going forward. You will get through the other side, and you will still be you. But you can't. The only way we can change a person is by giving them a lobotomy and making them not have emotions. You will still be yourself. You will still be yourself, but you will be a better self. And it's a bit like how we explain grief to clients as well. You will still be on the inside the person that you were, and that's what's going to help you continue your changing process. Because Oliver, let me tell you, if you had completely forgotten the idiot you were before you changed, you would probably go back to being him. And so you can't eliminate that person from your core. That person will still be there. It's about building the new you around that person, and embracing that person as a part of what made you change, with gratitude. So yeah, trust the process, lean into it when it's hard, just like you breathe when you have stress, breathe through it and it will become easier. And every thought that you have about the process, when you're in, you might have a bad day. Even thoughts are constantly moving.
Mhm.
Thoughts are part of us, they're part of the universe. And sometimes we fight against thoughts. We fight against the idea of, oh, I had a bad day, I failed, now I'm a failure. Or, I was rude to my partner, now I'm a bad partner, or whatever. But allowing yourself to recognize that, yes, I am aware that I was rude, doesn't mean that you're going to continue on that path. You forgive yourself in that moment without judgment, without contempt and unkind thoughts about yourself, and say, right, I'm going to nurture myself and just push myself through that uncomfortableness of the realization, and I'll do it better again. We all need to be a little bit more kind to ourselves, because like I said in the beginning, it is hard to well, I wouldn't say it's hard, but it's hard work to keep this change going and to keep constantly growing yourself, because it's not meant to be good all the time. Sometimes it's hard. So, make peace with that part of it, I'd say.
Yeah. The process.
Yes.
Key word. It is a process. Because here's the thing, right? We're talking about going from underproducing to overcoming. I'm still on that journey. I talked about that pivotal moment that happened 20 years ago. And 20 years later, as we sit here having this discussion, I'm still on that process. I'm still on that journey. Now, am I further along in that journey? Absolutely. But that doesn't mean that it's done. I don't know that there's ever a moment in your life where you can say, I've arrived. I think you have these moments where you're like, okay, I'm in a cruising altitude and things are kind of moving at a pace, where I was taking in the beginning, maybe I was taking one step and I was standing there for a few days. And then I took another step and then I was there for a few weeks. And then I took another step. And then you get to this pace where the steps are kind of happening, but that doesn't mean you reach your destination. And so enjoying that process, really embracing that process, having a different perspective around that process causes you now to do what you just said, Tracy, to really kind of dig in, lean in and do that. And I use a basketball analogy. I'm a basketball guy. So I use this analogy with guys quite often. And there's for those that are not familiar with the basketball team, at any given time, there's 5 different positions on the court. So there's a point guard, a shooting guard, a power forward, a small forward, and a center. So I use this example with guys because they typically can get this. I say, okay, if you're a point guard on a basketball team, and as the coach, after a game, I come to you and say, hey, you know what? I was watching you play this game, and I think that you should change the way you pivot. When you are going against left-handed opponents, I want you to do this differently. And I asked the guys a question. Did the coach now say that this guy is no longer a point guard? And everybody's like, no. So, well, what did he do? Well, he told him to switch up the way that he does some things. I said, okay. So the lesson in that is adjustments aren't a threat to your authenticity. What the coach was doing was actually giving him some advice that would actually set him up for a greater level of success. He is still a point guard at the end of the day with a new set of skills or a different set of adjustments that when he gets in the game, the next game is a totally different person. And so as we wrap this thing up, it is so important, and I'm going to get to the comments because I want to make sure I acknowledge those. It is so important that you are understanding that the process from going to underproducing to overcoming in any area of your life, whether it be your personal relationships, your professional relationships, your business, thriving in your career, whatever it is, there are some things that you're going to have to do and consistently do around mindset and perspective. There's some things you're going to have to do and consistently do around making sure that you are aligned with the right folks. And Sarah says she loves the fact that mentors can be alive or dead. They can be thought leaders you never met. You can ask wisdom of them. If they were by my side in such and such situation, what would you do? And I say that quite often. What would Kelly do? I do that, Sarah. What would Kelly do? He's no longer with us. What would Kelly do right now as I'm faced with this thing? It's always going to be a work in process. So make sure you're aligning yourself with the right people and making sure that you are not hitching your wagon to individuals that are going to hinder your process. And then making sure that the adjustments that you make, the journey that you are on, that you embrace them, that you don't let them hinder you, that they are not, that you look at them with anticipation. Because if we're building our dream home, I'm looking at, man, we're going to be in there in time for Christmas and it's going to be great, as opposed to it being this thing that is a chore. And so before we go, Tracy, please tell folk how they can get in touch with you. And how they can get some more of this wisdom that you have so graciously dropped on us today.
Thank you. I'm on social media. I'm Tracy Kimberg. My name is spelled TraCKimberg, and you can find me on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and on Instagram. And of course, I have a website, which is tracykimberg.com. You can go and have a look there and see more about what I do, specifically my work with teenagers or with couples and individuals. It would be lovely to also get your feedback on if you have listened now, or if this is a re-listen, then please let us know what you think. What are the insights you found helpful? And if this is going to be helpful to anybody else, then please share it.
Excellent. Tracy Kimberg. If this is the first time you're hearing that name, make sure that you follow her everywhere, because what you heard from her today is a small taste of the awesomeness that is Tracy Kimberg. So make sure that you are following her. Listen, can you give us a last word, and then I'll share where I can be found, and we'll wrap it up.
Okay. Yeah. So for me, for you that are all in the room today, and the people that are maybe having a re-listen, be kind to yourselves in the process of this change and growth as a human being. You know, last week we had the discussion about expectations and unrealistic expectations, and sometimes we do expect instant change, and this amazing person must almost push through this individual barrier like Superman, and all of a sudden you're this new person, super person. But it's not going to be like that. It's not possible. Nurture yourself in the process. Be your own best cheerleader on the way of becoming the better version of yourself. That's what we need to do. And thank you, Oliver, for inviting me. It's been absolutely brilliant. And for everybody that came, much appreciated. Thank you.
Indeed. And thank you for those last words. That's a phenomenal way to wrap up. That's Tracy Kimberg, everybody. I'm Oliver Marcel. You can find me everywhere on social media at Denali LLC. If you don't know how to spell Denali, my wife's name is Denise, D-E-N. My name is Oliver, O-L-I, Denali.org. Denali LLC is the handle everywhere on social media. Thank you to Tracy for being a part of this conversation, a significant part of this conversation, and to Sarah, Kim, Francesca, and Sandy, thank you for being in the room and lending to this discussion in the comments with value upon value upon value. This has been another conversation. Listen, these are two conversations we've had back-to-back weeks. Tracy,
we need to continue every week.
Put you on the spot, Tracy. We're gonna have to do some more of these.
Definitely.
We're gonna have to do some more of these. Indeed. Thank you so much to everybody who was watching, and everybody who will be watching this via replay. We appreciate you. Go forth, be great. You can go from underproducing to overcoming.
Fantastic.
Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. I think we're
Thank
good.
you.
I'm gonna go ahead and stop this recording. I'm still live.